We have just ticked over to 1 o'clock, so we will make a start. Welcome everyone. There might be a few more people jumping in as the other session finishes up. Welcome to Advanced Screencastify. And today we've got Mark Woolley, my colleague from the Wollongong Diocese Catholic Education Office. He's going to run us through this session. So welcome to everyone. Welcome to Mark. And thank you for tuning in. As we begin with all our sessions, just want to acknowledge country. We acknowledge and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander nations who long before us lived, loved and raised their children on this land. We also acknowledge all the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander families in our community and acknowledge their physical and spiritual connections to their land. We come together today to learn, to share and to journey together. And we gather in prayer. Father of all, you gave us the dreaming. You have spoken to us through our beliefs. You then made your love clear to us in the person of Jesus. We thank you for your care. You own us. You are our hope. Make us strong as we face the problems of change. We ask you to help the people of Australia to listen to us and respect our culture. We make the knowledge of you grow strong in all people so that you can be at home in us. And we can make our home for everyone in our land. Amen. In the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Just like to remind everyone that this session is being recorded and will be uploaded to the website on the resources page following this event, probably not till later tonight as we edit and compile that resource list for the day. And we will be utilising the chat function to ask questions. I'll be monitoring that, so feel free to throw the questions in there. If I can't answer it, I will pass them on to Mark as we go through as well. As I said, we do have Mark Woolley from Wollongong presenting this session, which is the next step, I suppose, with Screencastify. There was an introductory session earlier in the week, and this will unpack a few extra features of a tool that is fantastic to use, nice and easy to use as well for teachers, and you may choose to use it in your remote learning practices. And also once this remote learning stage finishes, you may start to, you may use these skills that you learn into the future. So with that, Mark, I'm going to throw over to you.
Thank you. All right, great. So I'll just share what I've got and we'll jump in. Okay, everybody should be looking at a presentation now. And I'm not hearing any negatives, so I assume that's the case.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great, thank you. So today is really about using screencasting. I've got feedback and student instruction there, but there's a whole different range of ways that we can use screencasting. There's a QR code and the bit.ly will both take you to exactly the same resource, which is this presentation, along with all the other links that I'm going to be using throughout this session. Our learning intentions for this session is that by the end of the session, you'll have a better understanding of how a normal face-to-face classroom is different to online learning. And I'm sure you've already got an understanding of that, but we're going to unpack it a little bit because that helps us understand how we can use screen recordings better. We're going to have a look at our Screencastify settings and options to make sure we're optimizing that. We're going to use screencasting to improve our instruction and feedback, improve learning through instruction and feedback. We're going to create better quality screencasts and we're going to manage those bandwidth concerns. And this is something I've spoken particularly with Ben about a lot because it's something you're not always aware of, but it has a massive impact on the student's experience and whether they're going to interact with what you actually create. So my first slide, I get a lot of inspiration from The Simpsons, and this was my go-to for a slide around the classroom, around what's happening in the classroom. So my question to you is, thinking about a normal face-to-face classroom, and I'm happy for people to either jump into the chat or they can just turn their microphone on and answer. But what happens in a normal classroom when you're giving instructions? We got any brave people who are going to jump in and tell us?
Judy here. Are you monitoring the students' faces and their actions as to whether they're understanding or not as you give the instruction?
Excellent. That's a big one. So we're getting immediate feedback. Number one, whether they're paying attention, whether they're understanding what we're saying, whether we're pitching at the right level. What other things might be happening in the classroom? Okay, we've got one message in the chat, a couple of messages in the chat. There's distractions. Definitely there's distractions. We get immediate feedback. Yeah, Megan?
Just the difference that students have in abilities and skills. So some students are obviously going to understand the content, some won't understand the content, and some will be beyond the content.
Right. So, all right, so I'm just reading the chat. They're looking for exemplars and non-exemplars to have students reflect on their learning and decide on their next steps. So one of the things we're finding, or teachers are reflecting on, okay, and Chris has got a good strategy there with physical association to the students, so they can make sure that they're checking for understanding, but also make sure he's got their full attention. One of the things we're noticing, that teachers are noticing, is that even though we're incredibly good at giving instructions, we're also great at taking the feedback, verbal and non-verbal feedback from students, and changing our instructions to suit their understanding. So we'll give a set of instructions, we'll see how well it's connecting with the students. One person might be brave enough to put their hand up and ask a question, which is probably a question 3/4 of the class has. And so we modify our instructions and we give more details. The other thing is, I'm looking at Bart in the picture there, but as soon as the teacher stops talking, Bart's just going to ask the person next to him, so what do we really need to do? Okay, I missed that bit, or I didn't understand it. So we've also got each other to fall back on. So when we're moving into something like Google Classroom, we're trying to give students these instructions, and quite often we're not getting, well, most of the time we're not getting that feedback. And if we are, it's really timely, really time consuming to give the students the feedback or answer their responses. So what we're going to talk about today is actually using the video, both for feedback, but also for direct instruction. So a couple of different ways we might use Screencastify, or screencasting in general. And this is very much based on Vicky's work from yesterday. Her session yesterday was a great introduction to how we might use Screencastify. But basically, as an instructional tool, we're using it for direct instructions, or to personalize the learning for the students, or maybe to give them feedback. Now, the students can also use the very same tool to record their thinking, their working out, their brainstorming, or just to create a simple webcast or screen recording that they can save into Google Drive. Now, everything that we're doing in Screencastify is going to be saved into Google Drive if you're in a Google Drive environment, which means that it's really easy to work with. So the other way, which I hadn't really thought of until maybe this morning, was I could put my computer at the back of the room and just record my lesson as it's taught and go back and have a look at it and reflect on it. And I know these webinars, as I've been going through maybe last week, I did a fair bit of editing, and there were quite a few things that I didn't particularly like about my presentation style. I think there might have been about 40,000 ums and ahs. So that's definitely something that I'd like to get rid of. And it was quite easy to see when I'm looking at that recording. So what I'm going to do is show you a quick example, and everybody would have been to this website here. So I'm just going to click on the website page, and it's taking me to the website. And I'll drag some controls out of the way so I can see. Now, I could send students, if I wanted you, if you were my class, and I wanted you to work on Screencastify, for example. Oh no, I want you to go to a website. Now, I could give you a link to this website, but it may not be useful to every student. Some students can come in and find what they need. Some students need a little bit more help. So if I come up in my menu bar up here, I've already installed Screencastify, and you can see that there's a little icon there, and that icon is going to, when I click on it, open up Screencastify, and it gives me a couple of options. I'll talk about these options, and then we're going to create a screen recording, and I'll demo the way we might go around the website. Now this first option here is just the browser tab. So just that tab. If I go into another tab, it's not going to record what I'm on. It's going to record the tab I'm no longer in. If I click on desktop, it's going to record my entire desktop. And if I click on webcam only, it's just going to record the webcam. Now I know that 99% of teachers say, I don't want my face or I don't want the webcam on the recording whilst I'm recording this screencast. And I believe you do. And it's hard because I don't want it there either. But when you include your webcam, and my webcam's included at the moment, or when I start recording it will be, it's giving students to connect with you as a teacher. And we do know from research that completion of online courses is radically higher when there's interaction from the instructor. So the more they can see your face, the better they're going to connect with the material that you're presenting. So I'll just click on desktop, and there's a little button here that says show more options. It'll give me a countdown before I start recording. It'll give me some drawing tools, and I can show a webcam preview if I want to check my hair before we go live, but we're live, so I won't worry about that one. So I'm just going to click on record, and you can see down the bottom, okay, it's asking me to share my entire screen. I get my countdown, 1, 2, 3, and now I'm recording. This is my screencast. I have my little picture window down here, so it's recording myself speaking, and it's recording everything that's happening on my screen at the moment. So I just wanted to show you this website and some of the features of the website. Our homepage here is some details about our Professional Learning Summit. If I click on the schedule tab, it's going to load the schedule. Now, some people have found that this is a blank page. If that's the case, you'll see here that we need to sign in to access the schedule and the Zoom links. So if you haven't signed into Google, you'll need to do that. Now down the bottom, I have this little mouse pointer, and if I click on the focus mode, it gives me this white bubble so I can see exactly where the mouse is, which makes it a little bit easier. Now, if I look at this schedule here and I decide that I really like the sound of Pear Deck, then what I might do is click on the schedule descriptions, and I'll be able to scroll down to Thursday, and I'll be able to find the description of that session. So this is quite an easy way to find out more about what we're getting into. Now, if we come across the top, as each session is recorded, the resources from the session are added to this sheet. Now, they're not normally added till sometime that evening, but if I was to click on, say, the Introduction to Screencastify session from yesterday, it'll take me down to the Zoom recording and also the presentation slide deck. So I've done this recording. I could keep talking, but we don't really need to do that. If I come down the bottom, I can click pause, which would let me have a break, maybe have a drink of water, and then I can start recording again. But I'm going to click end recording. And watch what's happening on my screen. It's taking this, have a look in the top right-hand corner. That recording, which was 1:42 long, is already been saved and uploaded into my Google Drive. So if I wanted to make that available to you, what I could do is just click on that blue button that said copy shareable link, and I could come down and paste it into the chat. So I'll jump into those questions in a second. It's pretty easy to do. Now, it's actually playing in the background there, and it's playing without the audio on. But one of the things that we often do when we do a screen recording, normally we get the start right, but sometimes we don't. And so I'm just going to click on pause there. And if I click on these scissors at the bottom left, I can drag them up or down to control where the movie actually starts. So I'm just going to cut a little bit off the front and a little bit off the back and click save. Yes. And that's going to be automatically trimmed, and that'll be reflected in my Google Drive. You see it's taking a little bit longer to save this time. But while that's saving, I'm just going to answer a couple of questions. Thank you, Beck, for your kind words. Webcam is very much needed, definitely. When I use desktop, it doesn't work and I don't get the countdown, only when I use a browser or webcam. Okay, so it's quite possible that you haven't given permission for screencasting. So just asking Anne, Are you on a PC or a Mac? A Mac. Okay, great. So if you jump into your system preferences on a Mac and you go to security and privacy, okay, and if we scroll down here, you'll see there's a screen recording option. And what we need to do is make sure that Chrome is selected there. It's probably not that issue. The other thing we need to do is make sure that the camera is available and also that the microphone is available to Chrome. So that's a couple of points that sometimes people get stuck on. Can you add a virtual background? No, I believe not. Are we able to clip sections from the middle? There is an editing function. I might show you that if we've got time at the end. I don't want to get too carried away. I would use my laptop. Yes, it won't work on an iPad. There are some other strategies, but there's definitely some advantages to this particular strategy. Okay, so back to my webpage. I'm going to drag the chat out of the way so I'm not distracted. I've got my movie. I've just trimmed it down. It's already in Google Drive. When I click on this blue copy shareable link, it actually turns link sharing on. So now I could make that available to anybody. So say, for example, someone sent me an email and said, I don't understand how to access the schedule. I could paste that link into the email and then have a movie which would show them how to navigate the website, how to sign in to access the schedule, etc. Now I'll click on more options so you can see. So this isn't available to everybody, it's unlisted. And if I click there, it's going to show me where it lives in Google Drive. Okay, I might do that just to show you because Screencastify has created a folder. So that's my movie in Google Drive. I'll just close that. In my Google Drive, there's a folder here called Screencastify, and that's been created automatically. And each of my movie recordings are in there. Now there's a lot of rubbish in there at the moment because obviously I've been playing around. Now my sharing options are, I can send this in an email, I can share it to Google Classroom, I can publish it on YouTube, and I can download it and generate a QR code. There's lots of different ways I can get people towards that particular resource. I'm going to just slow down a little bit and step back because back in our presentation here, I wanted to go there to show you how you might, for example, create a guide for a website that you've given the students. So breaking things down to really simple levels. The other thing that we really need to do is work out exactly what we want to achieve so we can create short and succinct videos that are going to help with that. So just here, another hot tip, if we're in Google Chrome, if you untick always show bookmarks bar, it gives you a little bit more screen space. So that will help you fit everything on. Now, just going back to my learning intentions, we're just going to have a look at the settings and options. And unfortunately, I can't record in Screencastify this little bit because it's not available because of course we're using Zoom, you'll be able to see it. So when I click on my little shortcut up here, and there are some instructions on that document that you downloaded before, the browser tab, as I mentioned, browser tab is okay, but when I go to a different tab, it won't record the tab that I'm in. It sticks back to the old one. And in fact, I get a warning to tell me as much. If I click on more options, I do like the 3-second countdown. I also like the drawing tools. They're really quite useful. If I click on tab audio, and this is the one situation where I think it would be a good idea to use it. So in fact, rather than being on this page, I'm going to switch across to this feedback website that we've created. And one of the things I just wanted to touch on, I'm going to go into a little QuickTime, a little YouTube movie here. And I'm going to show you what it looks like when I record a tab with audio. So now, and this could be, again, a really useful teaching strategy. I'm in a browser tab. See the microphone here? It's going up and down and it's into the red a little bit too often. Obviously, I'm a bit too excited. I'm just going to drag that down a little bit until we're not seeing too much red. Okay, and you should always check on that. If that line's not bouncing up and down, it means that your microphone's not working. I'm embedding a webcam. if I click on this little down arrow, these are all my different microphones I can choose from. And sometimes I'm just using the microphone that came with a phone, but pretty well any set of headphones with a microphone built in will work quite well. But always test, maybe the built-in microphone will work better. It doesn't hurt to have a look. I know this one works okay. I've only got the one webcam, so that's my only option. Okay, and I do want the tab audio. I'm going to show you why, because in a second I'm going to click on record, and I'm going to get my countdown. I'll get my mouse pointer the way I want it. Actually, I don't want that. So we're on this website here. I've got a YouTube movie, and rather than just getting you to watch the YouTube movie, what I'm going to do is click on play and we'll watch it together. Now, don't worry too much about the audio of this. In fact, I'm pretty sure you can't hear the audio, but the audio is being recorded. If I was doing this with my class, what I might do is click on the full screen option and make it full screen so that they could see the recording in full screen. Now, it's actually recording this, including the words. So for the students, they'd be hearing what's being mentioned here, and I can pause the movie and then ask them to reflect on something that's just happened within this particular YouTube movie. So instead of going into click view and putting the questions in and sorting things out that way, I could just choose a little bit of the movie to play, record playing it, and then ask some questions and ask them to answer in Google Classroom or however I normally get responses from them, even in chat if it was live. So that's not a bad way of doing it. I'm just going to click pause there and stop. Okay, and we'll see that we've got a movie created. Okay, and I'll drag it across here. And the movie is actually playing, recording the movie. Now there's audio there as well. Again, the audio is turned off here, and I won't turn the audio on because it might get a little bit confusing. But now I've got a little resource. I could put that in Google Classroom, and we might just show you how to do that. So a little bit of a movie that I wanted people to see. I'm going to share it to Classroom. And what's going to happen is Classroom's going to open up. It's going to find all of my classes, and there's many, many, many classes. Okay, I'll click on that class, and then I'll choose what I want to do with it. I could make it part of an assignment. I could ask a question. Let's just create some material. Go, and this little Google Classroom window will open up. My movie's already in there. Please touch this and respond to question. I thought I was typo free for a moment there. Okay, I can put it in a topic and post. And that will be available to the students. It's given them a place to respond to the question, and I've managed to do it pretty quickly. All right, back to the Zoom group chat. Is there anything in there in particular, Ben, that needs responding to?
No, I think you just answered Chris's question about sharing to Google Classroom.
Okay.
And the other ones you've already answered.
All right, great. So that's, again, more instructional material, but I can use that to record. And that was when I was recording there, I was recording, let's close that one as well. I was recording a tab, and the tab let me actually access the video, the audio, I should say. So that recording would have the audio that was included in the tab, which in that case was the YouTube movie. Now, most people have, I'm sure, found their way to this particular resource. One thing I haven't mentioned yet, so that's the presentation. This premium account will let you have unlimited length movies. Now, I actually feel like that's a bad selling point because I feel like our movies should be fairly short and succinct. But for the moment, you can redeem that coupon and get a free premium account. There's other resources there, but we might duck back to them a little bit later. And what I'm going to do while we're in Google Classroom, I might show you how we might give some feedback to a student.
Just before you jump in there, Mark, there's a question about sharing to Canvas LMS.
Okay, so if I was doing it to Canvas, I'll show you that as soon as I finish this next screen recording. So I'll do the next one. And yes, you can add the video easily to Google Slides. I'm also going to show you that. Thank you for preempting. So I'm in my class here, and I'm going to click on classwork. I'm going to find an assignment that has some work that needs to be some feedback given on it. And it doesn't seem to matter where I drag these tools, they're always in the wrong spot. I'll just drag them out of the way. And I'm going to view this assignment. So Ben, I can see Ben as in the Ben that's in this current movie, has handed in his assignment. So I clicked on the assignment, and he's completed the assignment late, which is a real shame. But we can see on the side here, we've got a little rubric that we can use for assessment, and he's actually handed in 2 things. So he's got this Google Docs document, and he's also got a little mind map that he's uploaded. And I quite like the look of his mind map. Okay, but back here on his Google document, I feel like he might have just copied and pasted this from somewhere. And so as a teacher, I mean, a great strategy and something that's worth showcasing with your students, I'm just going to copy that text and paste it into a new tab. And if I put the inverted commas, it will actually search for those words in that order. And what do you know? It's straight from Wikipedia. Very disappointed, Ben.
I was under the pump.
So what I could do all that investigation and then give the students some feedback. And of course, I've got a little commenting tab here. So I could go through and suggest something or leave some text-based comments, but it's going to be much, much easier for me to click here, and I'm going to record. I'll just record my desktop to be safe, because I'm not sure if I might jump out to another tab. And so here, what I'm doing is I'm actually giving some feedback on Ben's assignment. So Ben, I've opened up your assignment. I had a look at the mind map, and I really like that. I'm a little bit concerned here. The thing that actually made me consider that it might not be your work is 2 different size fonts. It's almost like you've copied this top section from Wikipedia. Now, I'd like to give you the opportunity to go back and rework that. And I can highlight the sections that I'm talking about. I can get my drawing tools out and highlight particular areas. Now I'm going to click on the stop button. Okay, and I've got this little movie for Ben. Now, you notice it's already been uploaded to Drive. So I'm going to click the shareable link, and I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to scroll down the bottom, and where it says private comments, I'm going to say, Ben, can you please watch this? And I'll paste in the URL. And now Ben has got some video feedback, and it hasn't taken me any longer than it would have taken to just view it and check it out. And he's got something that he can watch multiple times. Now, I actually created a little shortcut for this because that little bit of typing would probably annoy me. So I've said that when I type CC, I've told my computer, when I type CC, it's going to automatically put in those words. And then I paste the URL. So it's even quicker. Now, would that be useful for people to know how to do that, to create that little text shortcut? It's nothing to do with Screencastify. Maybe at the end, if people are interested, we might. Okay. Okay, there is a yes. So I will just jump into my, so this is on a Mac, and I'm sure you can do it on a PC, but unfortunately, I'm the wrong person to tell you how to do that. So, all right, so what I'm going to do, someone's just said, put it in notes. There's no way I'm going to put it in the notes, but I am going to create a screencast of this, and you can have the video to show you how to do it. So let's go with a screencast. Okay, and I'm going to go desktop. The reason I'm going desktop is because I'm not sure where I'm going to be again. So share, and I'm going to go to my system preferences. So here we are in my system preferences, and under keyboard. So for those people who don't know how to get there, I go to the Apple menu and then system preferences. And there's a little keyboard tab. When I click on keyboard, the keyboard will come up, and what I'm after is a text. So when I click text, you can see I have all of these shortcuts. So to add another shortcut, what I need to do is click the plus, and then I've got to come up with a couple of letters that aren't in normal words. Okay, so probably DD. I don't think it's, maybe that's not great. Maybe EE. No, maybe that's not great either. ZZ. So when I type ZZ, I'm going to replace the word ZZ with, you have a nice cat, because that's the kind of phrase that I would use a lot. So now we've saved that. Click stop, and I'm going to stop my recording. Okay, and stop. And this is the little movie that I've just created. And I'm going to copy the shareable link. Copied. And I'm going to come to my notes. And I'm going to paste that link in. And now you can all click on that link and access the movie that I just created. So it's pretty quick and easy. Yeah, there are definitely other ways of doing it within the browser. When you do it at the system level like this on a Mac at least, it works in every single app. So now if I type ZZ, every single app except for the one that I chose. Interesting. You'll see in the chat there, I typed ZZ and it came up with you have a nice cat. So probably not the most useful shortcut. I'm pretty confident I'll be deleting that one a little bit later on. So have I got lost? Have I just wandered down some kind of rabbit hole? I wonder. Let's go back to our presentation here. Now I did mention about feedback, and we've had an example of feedback. I wanted to mention bandwidth, and because this is critically important, and especially because there's lots and lots of people that are on these calls that don't have a lot of bandwidth. And so I did a little search, and you could accuse me of showing off, but I did a search before, and I just typed in speed test into Google, and nearly always this will come up, and it's a quick and easy way to see how much speed you have. Now, I'm fortunate, I'm one of the first NBN areas. I've got really good internet. I pay a bomb, but I've got good internet. So you can see that that's really quick. For you guys, you could be running on maybe 1/100th of that kind of capacity. Now, these screen recordings are still going to upload pretty quickly, but it's good for you to know, sorry, I'm just distracted by the chat again. It's good for you to know about bandwidth and how it all works. And so I'm just going to, for your viewing pleasure, I prepared a couple of things earlier. Downloads. There we go. So this is a 1-minute recording in full resolution from Screencastify. Okay, and you can see it, and the quality on my screen at least is extremely good quality, but it's going through Zoom, and so it may not look especially good quality for you. I did another recording. It's basically the same thing. And I'll play it full screen for you. And you can see the quality here isn't quite as good, but it's still pretty good. Now the difference is, let's get out of that. The difference is that the first one that I showed you was 42 meg and the second one was 5 meg. So the first one that I showed you, the really high quality one, is going to take 10 times longer and use 10 times more data. So if students are on a slow connection, there's no better way to turn them off than to have them waiting 10 minutes for a 1-minute movie to load, when they could be waiting 6 seconds for a 1-minute movie to load. So it just makes sense to make things small. So what I would suggest, and we can do this within our settings here. So I've clicked on Screencastify and I've clicked on the little settings wheel. Now, if I resize my tab, what it will do is make the browser tab that I'm working in smaller, or in fact, the size of those dimensions. So I'll show you what that looks like. So I've clicked on it And now it's made it that size, and it's going to record at that size, and that's kind of okay, but I'm not super excited about it because there'll be particular things here that when I click on it, it really won't work at that kind of size. So rather than doing it that way, what we're going to do is click back on the wheel, and I'm going to just turn that off. Actually, I'm just going to get rid of that tab altogether. Okay. And rather than, I'm going to manually resize the tab because it's not playing with me. Okay. Rather than resize it this way, I'm going to go to the limit resolution and I'm going to choose 480. And what this is going to do is make it about 10 times smaller than my last recording, but it's also going to let me create a 480p recording without losing the size of my screen. So that for me is a much, much better solution. And just out of interest, just so you can see what sort of difference it makes, let's go down to 240, okay, which is really quite low resolution. And I'll just go to a different tab, maybe this tab here. Okay, so I'm going to limit my resolution to 240p. Okay, I can change the frame rate, and the lower the frame rate, the less data you're recording. So, but I'm just going to leave that for the moment and let you see what it looks like. So I'll click record, and yes. Okay, so just a little recording here to have a look at what 240 dots per inch video looks like. So I'm just going to click the pause button and then stop. And our video is going to load, and you can see that it's kind of pixelated. It's kind of really pixelated. So is that workable? I would suggest probably not. So how do we solve it? We go back into here, we make another recording, into our settings. 480, I think you'll be much happier with. So record. Just going to do a very quick recording. Okay, just recording so we can see what it looks like. Pause and stop. Okay, and you can see that already this is much better looking, certainly high enough quality to run with. If I copy my shareable link, I could go and use that elsewhere. Now, when I looked at it at full screen, it would improve again. Just to point it out, this is actually 480 resolution. And when I play it full screen, you can see it's plenty clear enough for people to read. Okay, so that's one thing I would highly recommend that people do to manage bandwidth. Now, there's various things that you do, and video does use a lot of bandwidth unless you're trying to manage it, but so do full-size images. There's a whole range of things. And nothing is going to make your videos not be received well better than excessive bandwidth. If we don't need it to be super high quality, there's no point doing it in that quality. Thanks for that feedback, Chris. I know that you're pretty keen on saving bandwidth as well. Okay, so Ben's assignment there, we've already given some feedback on that, so I'm just going to jump back out because I'm aware that I want to make sure we get through each of our learning intentions. So we've spoken a little bit about instruction, breaking things down, even thinking about the individual tasks that we want the students to do through a lesson. If we can break that into a list and create a short screencast for each, that's going to let them watch what they need to watch when they need to watch it. And I think that just makes a lot of sense pedagogically speaking, but also with good with student engagement. Now, there are a couple of settings that I haven't addressed, and I'm just going to quickly have a look at them. So we did have our drawing tools on before. The webcam preview, I don't necessarily think I need. This tab audio is important if you want to record the audio of, say, a movie that's already in that tab. Now, the webcam, The one that I absolutely hate is actually really useful for giving students instructions. Let's flip it for a second. We're talking about how the teacher's using Screencastify. Within 2 minutes, the students can have this set up and they can be recording themselves, either solving problems, doing homework, doing an exam, or just using the webcam to explain their understanding of a particular concept. Now, someone did mention before about how we can put a movie that we've just created, how we can go and put it into a Google Slides presentation. And so we did just create a little movie. I'm going to throw a slide in there. And that little movie was about shortcuts, wasn't it? So I've created a new slide for my shortcuts, and I'm going to click on Insert Video, and I'll click on Google Drive. I'll click on Recent because I just recorded a little movie about how to create that little shortcut. Now, the big question is, was I smart enough to name the movie? I don't think I was, but I'm sure it was that one. So I'll click Select. And we now have a little movie which is going to show you how to create text shortcuts. And I can resize it and do what I need to. How easy is that? It's already uploaded. It's going to play automatically. And people have the access that they need. So pretty cool tool. You can record a video. So if I was giving feedback, in this case, if I was going to give feedback to whoever created this presentation, I might record my little Screencastify feedback. And if I don't want to put it on the screen to ruin their slide, I can just drag it so it sits just off to the side so that they can still see that it's there, but they can still reflect on what's happening on their screen. There's lots of different ways we can do that. I think that answers the question about how we throw it into slides. Have we got any other questions there, Ben, that I've skipped over?
No, I think you've covered all of them. Chris was having an issue when he put in the link into Google Classroom. He was saying that he still had to make it a shareable link, but I would think that just does that automatically. So I'm not sure why that's happening. And then the Canvas one.
There was a Canvas question, yes, great. So as I mentioned before, I was very slack in not naming my videos. So this video, rather than untitled with the date, would be much better as creating text shortcuts. That makes a lot more sense, and it's going to help me find it a little bit later on. As I mentioned, I could go in, I could trim the front and the back. When I click on create shareable link, that does turn on link sharing. So now I've copied that link, I could go and paste that into Canvas, it'll just work. Okay, so there was a two-step process there. I'm just copying the link and then pasting it wherever it is that I need to have it. Okay. I think it makes sense that that classroom example, giving a video feedback there is going to be much, much more efficient and quicker than trying to type text in and having those misunderstandings. All right, so just back to my presentation, a couple of tips, and these are pretty closely based on Vicky's tips from yesterday, but I did modify them a little bit. Whenever we're screencasting or Zoom conferencing or whatever it might be, we're trying to find somewhere pretty quiet, and using just a little microphone like this, or if you've got a Britney Spears microphone, that's probably even better, but a decent microphone does make sense. Chunk your information down. I'd say I actually really like the free account because it limits you to 5 minutes. I think any longer than that, you must have super students for them to stay on task. If it needs to be 20 minutes, make it 4 movies or 5 movies or 10 movies. The more materials we can prepare in advance, the better it's going to be. If I was creating this just as a screencast, I'd be running from my slide presentation. I might have some movies that play and I'd have it there. I have tried to use a script, it doesn't work for me. Probably won't work for you either, but if you're that kind of person, by all means, have a go. Showing yourself, as I mentioned before, and I referred to it on that feedback site, when students see you giving the feedback, it means that much more to them, and they're that much more likely to interact with it. And if students don't interact with the feedback that you give, the feedback's not going to make any difference. We're all wasting our time. It won't be perfect first time. It probably won't be perfect 40th time. Okay, but just get used to that. And the students are pretty forgiving. Believe it or not, in your classroom every day, you're not perfect either. So there's no reason why these videos should be perfect. Okay, that's the little shortcut movie that I just put in to our presentation, so you can see it's playing. I'm hearing it in my headphones, but I think you are mercifully avoiding that. Now, for the shortcut people, and I know Chris Betcher is a massive shortcut person. In fact, most tech gurus are. There's probably only one here that I would bother remembering, because the pause button is pretty easy to access, but it would be great to stop the recording really quickly. And so it's Option, Shift, and R to start and stop the recording. You can change that, but I don't see any reason to necessarily. Okay, so back to our learning intentions, just for me to double check that we've addressed everything that we were going to address. We've had a look at how that face-to-face classroom is different to online learning. And a lot of it is around the feedback that we're receiving from the students, around their understanding, and also their ability to connect with their peers to access information from their peers. We've had a look at those Screencastify settings and options. There's maybe one or two more that I'm going to show you that we'll touch back on. We had a look at how we can use screencasting to improve learning through instruction and feedback, better quality screencasts, and also managing those bandwidths. And I would really encourage you to just have a look, always go in, just click on a couple of buttons and just see where things are at, because we can learn a lot by doing that. The little hamburger menu over here that I haven't clicked on, I haven't shown you yet, give me a shortcut straight to my recordings, but also some different options. Okay, and down through here, now I went through and I couldn't find anything that I would really want to change. Okay, but there's my shortcut to my recording shortcuts. I'd be a little bit careful about changing these unless you know what you're doing, or maybe change something and give it a try and go back and see whether it actually does what you wanted it to do. So just duck back into there. We have an editor. It's not my favorite editor. I have edited in it. It's kind of slow. I'd probably, if I had a lot of editing to do, I'd probably just download it and throw it into your favorite editor, iMovie, Adobe Rush, whatever it might be. The classroom resources link is really good, but I've already given you that on your document over here. So this 5-step guide is actually quite good as well. And this Screencastify Genius course, I did it this morning. It's pretty good. So if you want to be a genius, or even if you want to be given the status of a genius, which I was given this morning, you can go and do that course. It'll take you about 50 minutes.
Sorry, Mark, I should have introduced you with it as a genius.
Yes, I'd completely forgotten about it until I saw it there. So I noticed that it's about 2 minutes to go. So
I'm just going to pick up on Mia's comment there. She's put it in the chat that there's a new function that allows students to record their own video.
Awesome.
And that it works seamlessly with Google Classroom. So it's still only in development, but sounds pretty good.
Yeah, that sounds great. Sounds really good. I'll have to check that out. I haven't seen that. So any questions? I feel like I've spoken for about 14 hours. The link to the free premium account will give you the paid version for free. It's only for a month. Any questions, Ben? Any ideas, comments?
No, I think it's really good. It's so simple to use, Screencastify, and I think you've unpacked some really useful things to be able for the teachers to be able to take back and use. I love that video as a feedback instead of having to type that. I know when I was in the classroom, typing all your comments all the time does become a bit tiresome. And how you mentioned that students are more likely to respond if it is a video of yourself. I think that's a really good tip.
Yeah, look, I was a little bit concerned when I was given an advanced Screencastify because I feel like it's a pretty simple tool, and it there's nothing too advanced about it. But I mean, that's the great thing about it. It just works. And I love the fact, as you said, Ben, if I can come in the classroom and record a video in 30 seconds and send it privately to the student and not have to worry about permissions or uploading or any of those things, I think that's wonderful. So best of luck to everybody. You can find our details on the website. So if you go to any of these sessions and you have questions, you can always email them through. You might even get a Screencastify video back. But certainly have a play around with it. Have some fun, create some resources, keep things short, keep it fun.
All right, thanks, Mark. Just as a way of finishing up on that, we do have a feedback form. It'd be great if after these sessions you actually jump in and give some feedback on what you have seen, so we can review them and hopefully make improvements as we go. So the bit.ly's there, the QR code's there, or you will find the links on the website. So
Yes,
thank you.